Hi, Certified Strength Conditioning Specialist Josh Henkin here. I want to share with you the accompanying video to the article that I wrote for Breaking Muscle about changing stability. If you ask most fitness professionals if training stability is important, they would probably say yes. The question is, can we make stability more purposeful? Can we program it like we do variables such as speed, load, volume, intensity, and so forth? So what I'm going to do is break down a very easy way to sort of see how we can do so. What we're going to do is we're going to take the exercise, the thruster or the squat and press, depending upon what school you're from, and I'm going to show you the basic movement and then how we can progress it. Most people, when they do a thruster or a squat and press with a barbell, they're going to look either to increase volume, how many reps you do, they're going to try to increase speed, or they're going to try to increase load. Now those are all three good variables, but how does stability play a role? Without having stability play a role in that, we can actually plateau much faster and probably set ourselves up for more injury type of risks. So let's go over a couple of those things. So basic thruster. Great exercise, a lot of value to it. One of the things that, I get a little bit cautious about is that when you look at the fact that we're using a very stable implement and we're always using a very stable body position, those are two things we can manipulate relatively easily to actually add challenge, progression, and probably more training benefit to the thruster over time. We can periodize it, so let's go ahead and examine a couple of those variations. A load position, type of load, and also speed of movement. Just changing the implement can change the outcome of a movement. In this case, we're going to use a sandbag for our thruster. What I want to do is use a different tool, not just for variety's sake, but because of the fact with a sandbag during the thruster, if I move faster, I have an unstable implement that is actually going to become more unstable as I move faster. So I really have to be proficient in integrating my body through the motion. So the key with the sandbag, we want to get the weight upon the fist. If the weight's not upon the fist, it won't be unstable. So initially what's going to happen to the speed is I'm going to move slower because the weight will not be evenly loaded on my body. And as I start to move faster, the weight will start to become more and more unstable. So I can introduce this at a much slower speed or a more stable sandbag, which is more densely packed. And over time, I can use a larger sandbag, not even change the weight, but have it more fluid where it moves more and then slowly increase speed. So changing the type of load I'm using is one variable. Let's look at a few more. So I can also manipulate my body position during the thruster, meaning that most people see an exercise only in one way. I'm going to squat and press, and that's the only way I can do the movement. I can do small changes to my body position because changing body position changes level of stability. I want to make it as progressive as I could, volume, intensity, load, and some of the other variables in my program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step in a staggered stance. So that's going to be toe in line with heel. So that's going to be just about a few inches out of my normal squat stance, but I can take my barbell again. And you can see that slight instability now adds sort of a rotational force that I must fight against. It puts more load through one leg, and I have to balance the weight a little bit more overhead. As I go faster, you saw that the instability became more pronounced. So just like with a sandbag, once I move to a different body position, I'm going to start again progressing from a very slow speed to faster and faster speeds as I get more proficient. Same thing if I add more load, it would be the same thing. I start with my slower speeds and build up. Changing body position is extremely valuable because it doesn't make you change the load so that you can acclimate people of different fitness levels to the same movement pattern. So now we're going to look at alterations of both the type of load we're using and body position. Now we're going to use a more challenging body position with our different load. And I'm going to use cowbells. I love using cowbells for thrusters because I think the slight pull back that the bell gives really helps people open up and teaches them how to stabilize the weight overhead. Additionally, now we have two independent weights moving along as we're going up overhead, which I think for a lot of people has more benefit and probably is safer for them to do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to continue our concept of that staggered stance. We're going to bring you back into a drop step lunge. So now we can do a lunge into a press. So now we have a much more aggressive instability through the body position, and we have some slight instability through the load. So just a simple drop step, drive up. And it doesn't take much. See, get out of position, so you have to be really grooved in that lunge. And the lunge is great because it's a very strong position for us to develop hip power from. And when I'm dropping down and I start timing it with the kettlebells, I'm willing to absorb that force in two independent weights moving upon me. So it's a great drill to do. It's actually probably more taxing than just going heavier in your thruster. We've done some studies and some testing showing that more instability in an implement can often cause more or higher metabolic demand than just purely going heavier. So it's a great option for your more advanced individuals. We're going to look at one more sort of variation in just one moment. By no means have I exhausted all the options you can do in using stability to alter the movement pattern to enhance performance. The last thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to look at how we manipulate the pressing side of it. So far we've been manipulating mostly the lower body portion, the squat, the lunge, the staggered stance. But you can manipulate the press as well. We can do so by going into a different plane of motion. So we're going to use a little bit of transversal rotational training as we go into the movement. I found that this really skyrockets the intensity of an exercise, especially if we use an unstable load again, like the sandbag. And the sandbag, also the load rests more anterior to our body, so there's also a lot more anti-flexion going on in the torso, so it's a great overall body exercise. So we're going to do a squat thruster, a squat press with a rotational component. So I want to begin by getting the sandbag in position, and what I'm going to do is as I squat, come up, pivot, back to the middle, pivot. So you can see that I now actually have to have foot action too. Athletic-based performance and functional training should eventually evolve into actively moving the feet in different patterns, because that's what we do in a lot of different athletic type of movements like throwing, kicking, punching, so forth. So this is a great way to add this into the intensity. So you can apply this by starting at a very base level for your clients of stability and moving people to different levels of instability over time as they progress. You can periodize these for like one type of variation a month, progress to the next level. You can spend a little bit more time on one, focus on adding more load, volume, or speed over time, but it gives you far more tools to apply effectively to your clients.